Brilliant. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this information webinar. Great to see so many of you here. So before we kick off, just a note that you will have seen pop up. We will be recording this webinar and it's going to be uploaded on the webpage for everyone to view afterwards. So if you don't wish to appear on the recording, please just turn your video off. So I'll first of all just talk through what we're going to be talking about at this webinar today. So we'll be running through a few things, an intro to the team first of all, Q, and the work that we do, who our membership are, and how we try and create change and how events kind of fit within that. But most of the time we really want to dedicate to questions. So I've received quite a few already, which is great. I've tried to answer them kind of throughout the presentation as much as possible. And then there's like a list at the end, which I'll go through first of all, but there will be plenty of time to also kind of just unmute at the end and to ask any of your questions. So yeah, it would be great if you can kind of save those questions that you have for the end. If you do have any issues with kind of Zoom or anything, feel free to pop anything in the chat and we'll try and help. So also just to say, we will provide written answers to the questions posed as well, and those will be uploaded to the webpage alongside the recording, and we'll let you know when that's on there. Okay, so first of all, just to talk through a bit about the Q team that are working on this project, on this tender. So myself, Adriana, I'm the events manager for Q, and I will be leading this tender, working alongside Sarah. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a Programme and Events Support Officer in Q. I'll probably be your main contact for any of the QLab UK workshops.
Lovely, thank you. And we also have a few others that are working on the tender. I think they'll be joining shortly, but yeah, Mike Brown, who is our Associate Director of Strategic Communications and Digital and is the project sponsor for this tender. Louise Smith, who's Marketing and Communications Manager and works a lot as a comms lead for our events. And we also have Charlotte Bowden, who's Project Support Officer and will be helping with the tender. Okay, so that's the team. First of all, wanted to kick off with a bit of information about Q, just to show the context of the work that we do and how events fit in. As you may have already seen from our website and the tender document, we're a community of thousands of people across the UK and Ireland collaborating to improve the safety and quality of health and care. We share our knowledge and support each other to tackle challenges. So members really are at the heart of Q, and the community thrives on the diverse range of skills, knowledge and perspectives of our membership. Membership is free to attend, and all our offers are free, including events. Our offers include, as I said, networking and events, as well as we have a range of kind of topic focused groups that members can create and join in an area of interest to them. We also have funding programs and provide a range of resources, which is available to anyone, kind of not just our members. Q is led by the Health Foundation and supported by partners across the UK and Ireland. If you do want to find a bit more about our partners, you can see that on our website under the About Us tab. A few words on our membership. So the community started in 2015 and is steadily growing. We welcome applications from across the health and care sector, from people who have experience or knowledge of using different types of approaches and methodologies to improve the quality of health and care. So as you can see from these charts, whilst the majority of members reside in England, we are seeing an increase in membership from people in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Ireland, and that's something that we're really wanting to grow. The roles are kind of split to 70% non-clinical and 30% clinical across the 5 nations at the moment. And to give you an indication as to the composition of our membership in terms of seniority, currently it comprises around a quarter who hold senior leadership positions and a further quarter in mid-seniority roles. Okay, so this is, our theory of change. I wanted to show this briefly to really show how Q seeks to enable change effectively, sustainably, and collaboratively, and to show the value of events to Q and how they play a really important role in helping us achieve our overarching goals. So in the first column to the left, our activities are listed, and so events are in there. Third down, I've circled that so you can see that. And then what makes Q distinct is how the community activates people's expertise, experience, and energy. It really is a place to participate with purpose, to make progress on individual, organizational, and system needs. And this is enabled through the 5 interconnected mechanisms that are present across our offers. So those are the kind of 5 purple circles that you see there, and they are connecting, sharing, supporting, learning, and collaborating. Change is achieved by the 5 mechanisms interacting and reinforcing each other. So events do tend to cover all 5 mechanisms to various degrees, depending on the type of event. So some events might have 2 to 3, others will be all 5. Quite often they are all 5. So through those mechanisms, we are able to enable change by 2 routes to impact, which are those 2 yellow arrows that you'll see. So first of all, we're looking for thousands of members to be better equipped to bring about positive change in their work. And this is really where we seek to achieve with many of the events that are named in the tender, so the community event and community space. Then the second arrow is about, we really want to harness the work that we do with members to then influence and support system leaders to create better conditions and cultures for improvement as a whole. So it's more on the system level. Events will have a role to play in that going forward. They haven't massively in the past. This will be something that will take up in the kind of more ad hoc work that's mentioned. It's not specifically named here because it's something that we're developing over the next 2 years and beyond, but just wanted to cover that for now. So we recently started work on a unified events approach for the team for Q events. That is still being finalized. We're still working through the approach, but we have confirmed some objectives for our events going forward. I think it's useful to share here, see how they fit in with the events that we have planned that have outlined in the tender. So the first one is around increased participation and engagement. With the health and care sector under extreme pressure at the moment, our members are faced with a lack of time to engage with our offers. We know our audience find it really difficult to step away from their day-to-day to attend events, and some are only being released for statutory and mandatory training. So we're really looking with our events program to make it as easy as possible for our members to attend. We'll have a focus on integration. So this is really around kind of our work on themes and what we're looking to focus on an organization going forward. And so that's mainly around content. Integration will be a focus of a lot of our content in our events going forward, with the kind of NHS in England moving towards integrated care systems. We'll be covering that a lot. Third one down is around equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is a really important one for us. We want to ensure that we create inclusive events, making sure that attendees and contributors are included as much as possible. You'll see that from one of the requirements in the tender. We're looking for knowledge of inclusion practices to make all audiences feel comfortable and valued in registering and attending Q events across the board. So moving across, we'll have a focus on real world issues and working collaboratively. So really through our events, we seek to create a space to work collaboratively, share ideas and experiences. I'll talk a little in the next slide around our events, but we are looking for someone who's able to provide some creativity and fresh perspectives to our events and make sure that they engage and energize our members. And then on the collaboration front, our events are interactive. So we're looking for experience of delivering interactive events with a range of formats to ensure that collaboration piece. Moving on, we want to share improvement knowledge. So this is really key to our vision and aims. And that's really through bringing in speakers and experts. through our content, and then fostering that learning and sharing of experiences between members. Then last but not least, we're really looking to work with partners to reach new audiences and increase our visibility. As I mentioned, we have a number of partners that work with Q, and we have country partners. We want to be more visible outside of England. So we will be planning events in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and Northern Ireland. We are looking for experience of kind of running events across the UK and Ireland. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to attend a Q event, and kind of feeling that we want to create, to give a bit of context to that. So on the slide, you'll see a range of photos of what attendees experience at our events. Obviously, most of the photos are from in-person events, but what I'm talking about definitely applies to virtual and in-person. So for us, the membership experience is paramount. This is really what we focus on, and we really invest in our members. As mentioned already, our events are inclusive. So we would really value working with an organisation that can lead the way with us to fully include all attendees from the registration process through to the post-event survey and beyond. Our events are a place to step away from the day-to-day for our attendees, who, as I mentioned, are under pressure working in the health and care sector. They are a place to provide space to recharge. We really look after them while they're with us, so that they can participate in a way that suits them, you know, paying attention to catering, providing space for them to step away if they need to take a call or have some quiet time and then come back. And we also want to celebrate members and spotlight the work that they're doing through our events. So from this side, you can see a few of the formats that we use. So in the top left, the video there just shows speed networking. We use liberating structures in a lot of our events. We want to make them as interactive as possible. The infographic at the bottom there is from our virtual community event last year, and it's just a snapshot of how members describe the event. The other photos there are from a variety of our events. On the top right, you can see an open space in action. So we do use this format a lot in our events, and we find it makes it possible to include everyone, to construct the agenda and address issues that are important to them. So making sure everyone contributes. We are trialing different formats and locations. As said, our members have a lack of time to engage, so we're playing around with how best to engage and support them through our programme. But also worth mentioning that we do have a design team. We put a lot of effort into designing our events. We also have an evaluation function, and that team works on reviewing the event, providing statistics and feedback. And then alongside, the event lead will make recommendations to future events. So we do put a lot of work into making sure our events are high quality and meet our members' needs. A couple of points to mention. These are both linked in the tender document. There is a video that I linked to on YouTube, which is just a couple of minutes on what it's like to attend a Q event. Really, it's a good reflection of how we run our events. They were filmed at our in-person events last year. And then we have linked to a QLab UK live blog from a little while ago, but still a really good indication of how we run our events. You can also search for live blog on our website, and a few will come up from there. Okay, so move on to the specific work that we're looking for going forward. So this is all taken from the tender document. I have also received quite a few clarifying questions, which are great. I've tried to answer kind of as much as possible here, but then there's also, as I mentioned, kind of time for questions at the end as well. So yeah, we're looking for a provider to be an extension of our team. So to begin with, really working on setting up ways of working and process for commissioning work as we go along the relationship. Just to know, I guess, before I dive in, if you go onto our website, which you might have already under the events tab, you'll see that there are a really large number of events on there. We have quite a few special interest groups that members run and feed into, and they have lots of events that they run kind of throughout the year. They're able to upload those directly to the website, but they are very much run by the special interest group with minimal kind of support from the team. So just to be clear, at this time, we're talking about the kind of Q core events, which I'll talk through now. So yeah, 3 series of events to begin with. They are at different stages of planning. The objectives of each are in the document, so I'll just talk through the specific work at this stage. So the Q community event, this is our flagship event for all members. It's going to be virtual using the SpotMe digital platform alongside Zoom, and it will be 2 half days on the week of the 17th of October. We're expecting 200 to 300 people. That's what we'd really love to see. We use, as mentioned, we use SpotMe digital platform that houses the agenda, the sessions, the delegate and speaker list, kind of a social media timeline that people can post to throughout, and resources. And we then use Zoom for the specific sessions. We found that has the best breakout room functionality for ourselves. We used this combination last year. It really worked, and we want to continue with that. So the successful agency will need to take over the project management of the digital platform and be able to run the Zoom meetings on the day. This includes registration, liaising with delegates through SpotMe, setting up the platform and the content on there with the SpotMe team. So we do have an account manager there that you'll work with. And liaising with the Q team to make sure that everything's kind of up on there. You'll also be liaising with speakers only really on the logistical aspects and running practice sessions where needed. The Q team will kind of brief on the content and recruit the speakers. As mentioned already, the setting up of Zoom sessions, kind of full management of them, including the breakout rooms, solving any kind of technical issues that people have. There was a question submitted on kind of assistance with chat functions and how that might work. We will have members of the team, the Q team on the Zooms, and they'll be able to kind of support on the chat for kind of content specific questions. So we're really looking for more the technical support for the Zoom. So just to flag on that, the digital platform role working with SpotMe will likely be the first role to be taken up after appointment. We're looking for that to be around July time. A few other things just to mention on what's needed for the community event. There'll also be the sourcing and managing of other suppliers for the event, so BSL interpreters and captioners, and anything else kind of identified through that project planning at the beginning. And then working with the Q comms lead on marketing the event, ensuring the work is aligned. So this is mainly kind of providing information and copy on the logistics side. So what is needed for people to log on to the digital platform, kind of feeding into timelines of what might be needed when, and content based on the needs of the event. There was one question submitted, which was around, is there a requirement for studio space to film speakers and live stream that on SpotMe? So no, there won't be. We'll expect all speakers to kind of be joining from their offices and homes. So I hope that answers that one. So that's all I'll say on the community event for now. Next up is the Q Lab. Sarah, would you like to talk through that?
Yeah, great, thank you. We're really excited to actually be launching our latest Q Lab UK project today, which is going to explore how we might create collective responsibility to reduce delays in elective pathways. So I'll pop a link in the chat at the end so you can have a look, read a little bit more about the lab and also the project that we'll be working on this year. So we'll be running our first in-person workshop for the lab on the 21st of September this year. And this will be followed by another in-person workshop on the 1st of November, and then a final one for the project in March 2024. But the date for the March one is still to be decided. We're we're currently scoping the venue for the September workshop at the moment. So we anticipate this will be booked by the time the event agency is in place in a couple of months' time. And then planning and scoping for November will probably likely take place in July once the project is underway and we have a little bit more of an idea of kind of the geography of our participants. And then in terms of like timings on the day for actual workshops, these usually run kind of like 10 till 4, 10 till 4:30. We'll be holding the September workshop in London. But yeah, as I said, location for November and also March is still kind of TBC. And then in terms of numbers, we usually look for maybe between kind of like 50 to 60 people, including members of the Q team. But again, we'll kind of have a better sense of numbers like once we've started like recruiting people that will be involved in the projects. And then the purpose of our lab workshops is to kind of bring together the participants that are working with us on the project. We'll often be looking to make progress on work, and also for it to be a space for them to network and connect with each other. The majority of the day, I think as Adriana has already said, is usually spent in some kind of like activities such as like liberating structures, conversations, discussions. And also I guess it's worth noting that our participant group for the lab is often a diverse group. We'll have Q members, non-Q members, people that are coming with like lived experience, and then also kind of a range of roles in the health and care sector. So I guess for this reason, we do try to make sure that our workshops are kind of as inclusive as possible. And then quickly just on registration for lab workshops, in the past we've used Eventbrite, so I anticipate we'll probably use that for September because we'll be looking to open registrations fairly soon. And then often with the comms, we'll manage this within the lab team ourselves and kind of lead on sort of the communicating with attendees. And then just, I guess, what the lab team is looking for from the event agency. So we'd be looking to work closely with a support provider on like all logistical aspects of workshops. We'd be looking for help with scoping venues, managing venue bookings, all aspects of like catering, AV, accessibility. As I said, we'll probably have this September venue booked, but we'll be looking to hand over the management of that contract once the agency is in place. And then on the day, we'd be looking for kind of the agency to lead on management of logistics, including kind of registering people and any kind of delegate queries. We'd also want support on like design and printing of materials. And then, I guess just kind of updates on kind of costs and stuff regularly so we can keep an eye on our budget. I think that's probably it for me. I'll pop a link in the chat to the lab pages so you can read a bit more about the lab itself and I guess also how the workshops kind of fit into the lab process. Thanks.
Lovely. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so then the final one is community space. These events are still being planned, so we're quite early days, but basically we are working with country partners to deliver some in-person events. We're thinking for approximately 50 people. These are kind of newer events, so we're testing, how engaged people are to attend. They will be outside England to begin with. It's likely that we might start in November in Scotland with the second one in March next year, possibly in Ireland. They will be approximately 4 to 5 hours in the middle of the day to allow time for travel, and they will also likely be based around the open space format that I mentioned earlier. Quite similar to what kind of Sarah outlined from the lab, interactive in-person events. And yeah, similarly looking for our support partner to manage the venue, catering and AV needed, and any other suppliers for accessibility, to run the budgeting and project management and manage the registration. Then of course, kind of leading the management of logistics on the day at the in-person events, and working with the Q team on the best way to involve staff on the day. So that's, yeah, run through the 3 events, and then obviously, as mentioned on the tender, there may be kind of ad hoc events that come out throughout the year. For example, at the moment, at the very early stages of scoping a kind of celebration event for our Q Exchange funding program, that's literally just popped up this week. But yeah, we're very much developing our program, as mentioned. So we're looking for someone to be able to accept work on an ad hoc basis, and be able to communicate on a lead-in times needed, and set up that kind of working relationship on that. So that's most of the presentation. We did have a few questions which I've outlined, which I'll go to straight away. So yeah, lots of questions about budget. So thank you for those. So yeah, I've put them on this slide. So just wanted to be clear at the outset to begin with, that for the budget for this tender, we're really looking at the costs of the event management. So your costs for managing the events. We're not looking for any costs related to kind of the venues or managing the platform or anything. That's kind of within the budget and will be set up kind of during the project management stage at the beginning. So yeah, again, just kind of your costs for event management. And for this, we have kind of a rough budget, which is 15 to 20K for the community event, and then 5 to 10 for each of the series of community space and the Q Lab events as well. For the ad hoc events, we don't have a set budget for this at the moment. As I said, we're still testing how best to run our program, and it will develop throughout the 2 years. We'll use the amount for the in-person and virtual events that has been budgeted in the tender as an indication of what things might cost. But yeah, at the moment, we don't have a set budget for that. Okay, and then I'll go through some of the submitted questions that we've had. And then after this slide, we'll definitely open up for any that you might have. Okay, so first of all was, what's the current size and composition of the event team at Q, or the team that deliver the events? So in the Q team, we're 30 people, and different members of the team work on different events. So for most events, there's an event lead or project manager, a project sponsor, then a comms lead, maybe a project support role, and an evaluation lead. Then for some events, there might also be a design lead that is consulted. So about 4 to 5 people in the project team involved at different times. Next question, is the working lab team different to the community spaces team? So yes, the lab team is different to the community space and the community event team, although there's some team members may be the same, but they're not exclusively the same. How have you delivered events in the past? Like, have we used an agency? So my role, which is the event manager role, has been up and running for almost 1.5 years. So that was a new role that was created. Last year, we experimented with how we wanted to deliver our events to go back in person. And we did work with an agency that just ran the logistical bits of our in-person events last year. Before this, we worked with kind of a preferred agency that ran a lot of our events over a number of years. So yeah, the Q team in general have run many events between them, both online and in person, and they are used to working with agencies to deliver them. We have a big ambition and small team, so we are looking for that preferred provider approach that works for us, looking for someone to really work as an extension of the team. Next question was, let me just find it. Yeah, why are you hosting the community event as virtual based on the feedback given in the videos from the 2022 event? Good question. So last year we did run 3 events under the banner of the community event, and that were 2 in-person events, which is where the video was filmed, and 1 virtual event. So this year we've decided to do one virtual event under the banner of the community event. So that's the named community event, but we are aiming to roll out the in-person events, and that's what community space will be. So we found that attendees found it quite confusing that there were quite a few offers under the same banner at that time. So we wanted to kind of separate and roll out a series of in-person events through community space that will kind of go around throughout the year. So I hope that answers that question. Do we look for sponsors? So no, we don't have any sponsors at our events. Yeah, so that won't be needed. The question 6, you mentioned other suppliers. What other key suppliers have we worked with in the past? So yeah, I think in the tender we mentioned BSL interpreters and captioners. Other suppliers that we've worked with before have included photographers, videographers, obviously captioners, as mentioned. Last year we also had like a spoken word poet that came in and did a poem at the end, and then we had sketchnoting as well at our virtual event, which you saw in that photo. So yeah, we're bringing in kind of different suppliers depending on different events. What style of venue do you usually opt for? So I think we've alluded this to a little bit in talking about how we run our events. But in general, we prefer cabaret style to theatre style. We find that obviously engenders more collaboration and members talking to each other. We like plenty of space kind of to move around within that. And we also always like the option of at least a couple of breakout rooms and a separate area for catering. So lots of space for people to kind of move in and out. Question on registration, is it Spot Me for all events? So yeah, as Sarah mentioned, it isn't just Spot Me. So we use Spot Me just for our community event. We do usually use Eventbrite for all our other in-person events. We're open to using other platforms that you may already work with. That would be subject to approval from our data protection department, which we can look to get. But Eventbrite is kind of already approved and being used internally. A question on our designer. Do we have an in-house designer, or do we need kind of the agency to work with the designer? So we don't have an in-house designer, but we do work with some freelance designers to do a lot of our work. It would be great for the appointed agency to be able to work directly with their designers, but that might not be needed for kind of every project. So we can talk about that at the project outset. So question 10, you mentioned that the event agency is expected to support the Q-Comms lead with the marketing of the events, and just clarifying a bit about that role. So I know Louise is on here, so do pitch in if you want to, Louise. But basically, what will be involved in this is, I kind of mentioned earlier, is providing information and copies specifically on the logistics for emails and kind of what needs to go out to attendees and members at what time. So feeding into those timelines for the attendee emails and any other things, looking to get the attendees to the event or onto the digital platform. And then also working with the comms lead on kind of the branding, maybe for the digital platform, which is about kind of uploading logos to the platform and those kind of things. So I think hopefully that's answered that one. So for the ad hoc events, are there any desired services that might not be included in the requirements? No, not really. There's nothing outside of the requirements outlined in the tender document. It's likely that those ad hoc events will be kind of more towards a logistical support for in-person events, but yeah, we just don't know for sure at this stage. So yeah, it's about setting up those kind of preferred ways of working. And then finally about an NDA. So yeah, you won't need to sign an NDA before starting the work. So that's all the questions that were submitted. Thank you so much for those. So now I'll stop sharing and yeah, open the floor up really to see if anyone has any questions. Please feel free to kind of unmute and just go for it.
Okay, I'll step in if that's okay. It's Jenny Elliott here. Hi, thanks very much for that. That was really useful. Just a couple of questions from me if that's okay. Are any of your events paid for by delegates, or is it a mix?
Not totally free.
Totally free.
Yeah.
Excellent. All free. That's a simple answer. Great. And then for your virtual events, have you run them? Now, I get that we all use different terminology here. So from our point of view, we tend to run events sometimes as live or truly live. So have you recorded speakers in the past, but run it as a live event? Or what's the format of your virtual event? Or how would you envisage the virtual event running?
Yeah, good question. Predominantly kind of run them live. So yeah, kind of, yeah, in, you know, the speakers are dialing in and doing their presentations kind of in the moment. That's definitely what we did for all our sessions last year. I know a couple of years before we did have some kind of recorded parts that were kind of played as live and then available in the resources. So yeah, when we do, we record all our sessions and kind of have them available afterwards as well for people on demand. But yeah, they're played as live.
Thank you. And one final question from me. Are you able to share what your financial aims are of the event? Are they intended to, you know, what's the purpose of them in terms, are there any financial aims?
There aren't really, no. So, you know, as mentioned, we're really about the member experience. So our events and the ones kind of outlined here are to support members, to bring them together and get them to kind of work together and solve their issues, and to provide that space for members to come together. And then there are some other events that we do, which is around kind of promoting CUE and the work that we do, which is about kind of recruiting members. But yeah, we don't have kind of any financial aims with our events. We're a charity.
Great, thank you. That was all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anton.
Hi everyone, I'm Anton Briolo from Haymarket Media Group. Thanks for that, really, really helpful. I just had a question, follow-up to your answer to the question on sponsors. So I believe, if I understood correctly, that you mentioned that support would be required on that. So can I just clarify, are you looking for the event agency to support with sponsorship acquisition as part of the contract, or would just not that be part of that?
No, that's not required. We don't have any sponsors. Yeah, so that's not part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Alan Doyle from 7 Events. Thank you very much for the thorough briefing. Really helpful context for everything. Always good to hear. Just a couple of questions around the virtual event. So would you be able to give us an indication of kind of the volume of presenters that would be involved in that, just to give us some indication about how much support would be required with those prep calls that you mentioned in the brief?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we're actually, yeah, kind of going into the planning stages at the moment for that and looking at content. So yeah, I don't have like a specific number off the top of my head that we've been working to. So last year, I guess if you have gone on YouTube and seen some of the sessions that we ran last year, we definitely found that there are probably too many. We kind of split our audience a bit, to be honest. So it wouldn't be that level of sessions. I would say we're doing it over 2 half days, so about kind of 3 to 4 sessions a day with a couple of speakers at each of them, kind of just as a starter.
Yeah, that's great. Just a ballpark is helpful, so that we can use that.
Some will have kind of the larger panels of 3 or 4, and then some will just be one. So yeah.
Sure, makes sense. And then one more question on that: is there any breakout component to the virtual? So at any point you split the audience and they make choices? And again, just to understand volume of breakouts that be happening, because sometimes we might staff it so that there are people managing different spaces, but the key thing is really how many breakouts might you have running concurrently at any one time in the agenda.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question, because yeah, breakouts are really a key part of our virtual events. As I said, the kind of interactivity that we see in in-person events, we try and recreate as much as possible for virtual. So it really depends on the session. So thinking about last year, we would like to break out to about groups of between 5 and 10 people. So it depends how many people come. And sometimes there'll be, you know, like a short intro, going out into a breakout room, coming back to feed in
Yep.
and then going out again. So yeah, a lot of breakout room. We're looking at providing kind of different types of sessions this year. So some will be kind of more breakout heavy and others will be more using polls and kind of feeding in on the chat. But yeah, definitely kind of breakout rooms are kind of key to our virtual events.
Okay, great. And then kind of a follow-up question to that and connecting to like how you run your events, or open learning, all that stuff, which is great. Love to see that. But just curious, have you had any success translating that to virtual? So do you ever use any like digital tools? So I'm thinking about like virtual event whiteboards or anything along those lines, and that might be important considerations for this.
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, we have run kind of digital whiteboards and used different tools. I think thinking for the virtual community event this year, we want to make it as accessible as possible. We know not everyone is able to kind of get on those tools and use them. So we'd look at kind of what's the best kind of use of them. But I think in general, we try and keep them down to a minimum and use kind of polls in the chat board, the chat function, as well as breakout rooms. Yeah, so maybe one or two things, but kind of not wedded to anything.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ellen.
I just have one question. In terms of the budget breakdown, with the in-person event, with the 5 to 10K, is that total for the number of events or is that per event?
That's for the series of events, yeah. That's for the 2 community space and the 3 QLab.
Perfect, that's brilliant, thank you.
Anything else?
There was a question in the chat. I think I've answered it, Sally, but just in case you wanted to add anything to that.
Yes, great. So we have already the relationship with SpotMe, so actually just signing the contract at the moment. So yeah, that will be kind of through Q, through us. It might be that, yeah, we need to, once we're kind of up and running, look at how best to use kind of Zoom licenses. We really want kind of the provider to be able to take on that work. So it'll probably make sense for the provider to do that. But yeah, that's something to kind of work through. Any other digital platforms for the community event? So we, as mentioned, we used SpotMe last year and it worked quite well. We're really looking for something quite straightforward and simple. And obviously we use Zoom for most of our sessions. So it's really a place to have the delegate and attendee list and to house those kind of Zoom links for people to go into. So we're quite happy with SpotMe for now, not against kind of looking at other providers in the future if needed.
We did use a different platform in 2020, and that was, it looked very fancy, but was more basic than SpotMe, and actually SpotMe has the functionality that we should like, that we need. But yeah, we've experimented.
Okay. Any final questions? Nothing. Great. Okay. Well, if you do have anything that pops up, please feel free to email me. Obviously, my details are all on the website and the tender docs, and that's if you have any kind of issues getting on the system as well to submit, please just send that through to me. But yeah, thank you so much for attending and have a great rest of the day.